Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and this is News and Week in Review, although the news is going to be one thing. We're going to, maybe two things. We're covering two things in the news. Either way, this is the News and the Week in Review, the regular weekly video that goes up every Saturday that has some bits of news. It also has the videos we've covered this past week, the games we've covered this past week, videos coming up today, next week, all of that and more, links and timestamps to everything down below. But with that said, let's start off with news, although the news is going to be very singularly focused this week because, oh my gosh, so fun fact for you, on a normal day, if you type in board game news into Google, there's not a ton. Sites that I use for my news sources, things like Board Game Wire, Board Game Geek, a variety of different sites, Polygon, they sometimes have things here and there, but they usually don't even show up in your Google search. Usually board game news will show up things that aren't really that related to the designer side of the board game world that most of us tend to live in. If you type board game news right now, a whole bunch of articles pop up, left, right, and center from various sites that you might not expect to see them from, because tariffs are basically everything that's going on right now. There are so many excellent articles that really break down the situation with tariffs. If you missed it, there's a 54% tariff currently instituted on board games, which is not great and could well threaten the death of the industry to an extent. That's too doom and gloom. I'm not gonna say that. It will very much, if these tariffs stay in play, there are a lot of people who will not survive. A lot of companies who will not survive this change to the way board games can possibly be done. Will it represent the death of the industry? I don't think so. Very few things really do destroy industries, but they absolutely can shake them up extensively and cause it so that most people who are small to medium businesses struggle or don't do well, leaving the few remaining companies being the ones that are the most established, that have the most ability to weather these kinds of things, but that also really cripples an industry's ability to grow and be nuanced. And if you want all the board games coming from the top 5 companies, sure, this is a great way to do it. Either way, I'm not going to heavily dive into this in this video. What I will do is I will reference a bunch of different sites and articles with links down below to them that all have a ton of information about how much of an impact this is. Because there are so many of you who already know this. There are so many of you who don't necessarily realize how much of an impact it is. And I think seeing the large variety of platforms talking about the consequences of tariffs in the board game industry, it cannot be undersold that this is going to have an incredibly negative effect. How negative, that we can debate, but it is not a question. If these tariffs stay in place, this is bad for the board game industry. It is bad for companies, it is bad for individuals who try to make their living here, it is bad for gamers who want to buy games at an affordable price point. Everything is about to get more expensive, which means people are going to buy less, which means companies won't survive. That's just the long and short of it, but past that, if you want to check out a variety of sites, definitely check out Stonemeyer's article on it. Stonemeyer, who honestly, his first article, when they first had the first batch of tariffs, was more positive about this is bad, but we can survive this. And now when you go from that to 54% tariffs, he's like, maybe not quite that. Grant Lyon did an excellent short video you can check out there. There's a variety of sites that are, like Board Game Wire has an article on this already. There's a bunch of sites that don't typically cover board game news as much, from The Verge, from Polygon, Aftermath, Ars Technica, Popverse, Wargamer, PC Gamer did an article on the entire board game industry and the nature of these tariffs. This is really the only news that functionally matters. This is the only news that functionally matters as far as the board game industry is concerned at the moment. There's worse things going on in the world and there's other things going on, but in the board game space, this is the biggest single thing that I think I've ever lived through as far as the potential consequence, the potential catastrophic effects to the industry. Again, catastrophic does not mean the industry will die, but it's not good. It's not good. I'll just tell you that. It's not good. Genuinely, if you haven't yet, I encourage you to read an article. Find the site that you respect the most from any of the ones I just mentioned, and try to read through it to at least somewhat understand if you don't already know what's going on. That's kind of the board game news. In other similar news, I mentioned PC Gamer last. Speaking of PC games, well, not actually PC games technically. Speaking of video games, the other big news this week was the Nintendo Switch 2 was announced, along with pushback around the price of games. Apparently, like Mario Kart is going to be an $80 game, and people were like, that's not cool. We don't want our video games to be $80 games. Although that's more complicated than you'd think, because the video game industry has been going through its own trauma and issues this past year. The amount of people who have lost their jobs in the video game space in the past, 18 months or so is insane. If you have seen all the various headlines, tens and tens of thousands of people, maybe not tens and tens, but like I think it's over 20,000 people have lost their job in the video game space in the past 18 months or so. I think the number is significantly higher. I don't actually know offhand what it is, but it has not been a good year. And part of it as well is the video game space in its own way has its own sustainability issues as far as what goes into making these AAA titles. And then the price of the games hasn't really shifted dramatically in the past, you know, I don't know, in the past too long. The price of games hasn't shifted dramatically. A lot of the gaming structure has been shifting to like people buying collector's editions and trying to like make adjust for these inflated costs by saying, hey, you can still have your game for $60, but there's a $90 version and a $120 version and a $200 collector's edition that comes with a big miniature. There's all these things that really add to the amount of money a company can make out of a AAA title while still trying to keep the price as low as possible. There's a lot of pushback against Nintendo for this with their $80 games. We'll see what the industry does as far as whether other companies will take that as a permission slip to follow or not. Obviously, Ubisoft had their own issues with, I think was it, no, my gosh, what was it? The, one of their pirate games that was waiting for a long time and they tried branding as a quadruple A game and then wasn't well received, and that was their initial attempt at upping the prices. It's complicated as well in its own way. Although the other issue they're having, which is possibly worse, depends on who you are, there's kind of the idea that many of these Nintendo Switch games, you won't be buying a physical game, you'll be buying a chip, which you can then download the game, which means that there are many people who buy digital copies of games anyways. They buy a digital copy, that's it, that's their choice, fine. But there are a lot of people who buy physical copies knowing they can then turn around and sell those games. It's their game, they can sell it, they can move on from it, and this shifts the nature of kind of taking that choice out of their hands, almost potentially an attempt to destroy the used market and just restrict the ability to get access to games to the way they want to deliver it. Now they have said, this is also video game stuff, they have said this is not going to be with all games, it's going to be game by game, but nonetheless you have a lot of pushback around that, which that one, on a personal level, I understand more. Everyone's trying to survive out there in their own different ways, and life is complicated. Although I will say, additionally, if you missed it, there was also news that Nintendo basically announced they're pushing back on when you can pre-order the Switch. The release date is still the same, but they are pushing off the pre-order date because of tariffs to try to wait and see how things will stabilize, because the prices otherwise might shift. So release date's still the same, your ability to buy it is not, because currently it seems like you might have to pay more for it if the tariffs stay in place. So it's not just board games. If you're going to retreat to video games, everything is going to be affected in its own different way. That's your news. Joy and fun and yay. And I mean, life's still good. Life is still good, life is still great, but like, definitely not the best week, we'll say. Anyways, with that, that's all we're going to do this week. We're not going to do a creative spotlight this week. I kind of want to talk about this a little bit more and focus on this. We're going to move straight on to the week in review. The week in review are the videos we've covered this past week. We're going to start with the non-specific review coverage, and then we're going to move to the reviews we've had. We had upcoming crowdfunding campaigns on Monday. We did that instead of two back, not to back, covering the various crowdfunding campaigns that will be launching in the month of April. I am curious whether any of them will be pushed off because of tariffs. Like, there's a lot of instability, and the instability really changes how people have to operate. But either way, upcoming crowdfunding campaigns in April. That video went up Monday. Then on Wednesday, that's not true, on Tuesday, we had top 10 games to pair with Taylor Swift songs. Yes, this was an April Fool's Day video, and someone pointed out that Foster the Meeple did this like 11 months ago. They did it actually like late April last year. They already did a Taylor Swift Eras Tour, a video pairing with board games, so they beat me to the punch. But mine was an April Fool's joke, and theirs wasn't, although theirs was better done too, so you should probably check out that video as well. Anyways, we had that. We also had the weekly live going up this past week. It was one of the most active weekly lives I've had ever. Like, I can't remember the last time that I have not like responded to every single comment. I really try to respond to every single comment, one of the benefits of talking as fast as I do, and this week I wasn't able to. Combination of having my own appointment after the call, after the weekly live, but then also just it was an incredibly jam-packed as far as the audience and the conversations. I appreciate all of you for keeping it as respectful as possible, because it definitely leaned into political territory. It was basically talking about tariffs, but it's very hard to talk about tariffs without talking about the politics behind tariffs, and so it definitely leaned political. I will say it was 97% respectful, and then 3% dismissive of others' opinions. I prefer the 97%, and I understand that there are people who aren't even happy that I prefer the 97%. Meaning I want to be respectful. Even if somebody has an opinion that is so different than yours, and even if it's an opinion that you view as damaging, I just don't think we change minds by alienating and ostracizing others. I think that, and there are people who think we do. There are people who think that there's a degree of, well, you know, you have to show them this, that bad behavior can't be tolerated. I just don't think that works when you're not like in that person's direct inner circle. I think when you're in someone's inner circle, that kind of conversation can be had. When you're a stranger on the internet, I don't think anyone cares if the stranger on the internet doesn't tolerate the behavior. It just kind of puts these further and further barriers behind others. Either way, I'm not going to go too far down this rabbit hole. I've said this a million times. It's my personal preference as how to resolve things. I might not be right. It's just my personal preference on how to resolve things. Moving on, that was the weekly live, but definitely check that out if you want to. I still have to respond to a ton of comments. There was so many comments after and doing that video. I'm so behind on it, and I want to engage with as many people as possible. And then lastly, on Friday, we had games leaving the collection video. A bunch of games were left that were hard. The hardest, I think, for me was probably, oh my gosh. The Fall of the Mountain King was a very hard one for me to get rid of, but there are a bunch from my personal collection that I got rid of this month that I would rather not have, but the usual problem, games are being added, so games must leave. That is the constant problem with a revolving collection and not adding more magical time to my life. With that, as far as the games covered this past week, we had several. On Saturday, we had a review for Pina Coladice from Hachette. It was a fun little game of Yahtzee-style dice rolling, an enjoyable game, but not one that had a ton of depth to it. I give it a 3.5 out of 5. We had an Aeon's End Beyond the Beach preview. This was a sponsored preview. I will talk more about my thoughts on this, but there will be a gameplay coming on it, so I'll talk more about it later. But that was a sponsored preview done by Meg around the newest upcoming Aeon's End game. We had a 6 first impressions video going up on Sunday for Invincible, Rivers of Gold, Cities from Devere, Comic Hunters, Bardwood Grove, and Beyond the Horizon. Just giving my short thoughts on all those games. I'm not going to go through it right now. You can check out the video. What I will say is there are a bunch of people who pointed out that I kind of don't align with the majority on this one, which will happen. I mean, inherently, the nature of having opinions is, on average, your opinions will fall in line with the majority. That's going to be true for most people. You're going to have the majority of your opinions are going to fall in line with the majority. I think that just makes sense. Like, most of us like chocolate. Most of us don't like pickles dipped in peanut butter. Okay, just picking an arbitrary thing. I think those are true statements that we can stand by. So in general, when it comes to opinions, most of your opinions will align with the majority. But there'll be times where your opinions do not, and that's also where individual reviewer alignment can come into play. What was interesting about this video is there were several games that I kind of liked more than the majority, like Bardwood Grove and Beyond. I don't know if Beyond the Horizon had issues, but Bardwood Grove has had more mixed reactions. Some people loving it, some people not as much, and I'm very much in the loving camp, at least based off my play so far. Versus games like River of Gold, Invincibles, and Comic Hunters, while I didn't not enjoy them, I definitely enjoyed them less than the average opinion. So this is a video where my first impressions of a bunch of games kind of did not align as well with the majority, for better or for worse. But hey, if you want my take on it, that's that video. We also had a Village Attacks sponsored gameplay. Overall, I've played Village Attacks back in the day. I like it. It was fun to dive back into it. I enjoyed the experience. My biggest problem with it is only that there are other games in that space that I enjoy more. There are games like Massive Darkness and Zombicide and Cthulhu Death May Die that all do similar things, or if you want games that aren't just Simon, Machina Arcana. There's a bunch of games out there that do that kind of dungeon crawler vibe, and I overall like Village Attacks, but I've never loved it when you get stuck on bad roll. Sometimes it just happens you feel like you have wasted turns, but it is a fun puzzle. It's one that if I had more time for those types of games, it would be one that I'd want more. As it is, I just enjoy the game. Like, I'd give it a 3.5, trending to a 4 is my instinctive reaction. I had the game back in the day. This is my first time having a chance to play with the new expansion characters, at the very least. We had a review for Reichbusters, a first impressions review, because I only had 2 scenarios in the new Reichbusters Reloaded, but I really liked it. I thought they did everything that the original game that I wanted it to be, and then did a much better job with the experience. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 because it's all the things I wanted to like about Reichbusters, but they streamlined the stealth system, they streamlined the token management, and they just made it so that you really have kind of 2 games in one. You have a very tactical stealth game that then explodes into a whole bunch of dice rolling and with a lot of fun characters with abilities that are really fun to take advantage of, and it feels like you have 2 different experiences in every session, which is a very rewarding experience. So overall, really like Reichbusters. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. We had a review, we had a gameplay for Starleap. Starleap is one that I really enjoyed. This is a sponsored gameplay, so obviously take it with a grain of salt, but I really enjoy Starleap. It builds off what Cartagena does. I really liked Cartagena back in the day, but it's a little too simple and straightforward, and it's a game that once you play it a certain number of times, you've kind of seen what the game does, and Starleap mixes it up to an extent because of the nature of the card play system, as well as the way you can upgrade your characters. So there's more things, and also expansions in the crowdfunding campaign. But I really like Starleap. I think it's one that visually, I don't think it looks as good as, like, visually, if I looked at it, I don't think I'd be pulled in. I think it works once you play it, but I wouldn't be pulled in by it visually. But when I having actually have played it, I really enjoyed it, and I think it's an excellent experience and one worth checking out. Then we also have the Adventurous. This is another sponsored preview over here done by Meg on the channel, but I had a chance to play this one, The Adventurous, The Curse of the Pirate Queen, or something like that. But I actually have not played the original Adventurous. I've just played this new one. It's light and fun. I don't think I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to play that game. It was a fun experience of push your luck as you try to gather as much treasure as possible before, you know, getting cut off. I played one game of it, and we actually had someone who got the most treasure, but then didn't escape in time, which is the intended experience to a degree, that push your luck aspect. So I enjoyed it. It's fun. Definitely very much on the lighter side. Like, it'll probably be a 3 out of 5 for me. It's fine. It's good family weight fun, and it has a sense of thematicness to it, but the actual gameplay experience itself, mechanically, wasn't as rewarding as I would personally like. Then we also had what's called Adventurous. So the Adventurers from Simon and Adventurous, two different things. Adventurous is Mutton Shy. I did a review and gameplay of that. I really liked it. It was very solid. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I possibly could see it going to a 4, but I'm not quite sold just yet. But it's very different. It's very unique as far as the way you have to lay out the cards in a way that I thought was, well, different. And different has its own appeal because I'm not comparing it to other games. I can't just say, hey, this is another Sprawlopolis. It's not. It has elements of Sprawlopolis for sure, but very different, and I think it's worth checking out if you like games like Sprawlopolis because of the experience it provides. But ultimately, it's a solo little play cards out. You have these marvels that are these sea creatures. You have to kind of lay them out on certain tokens or icons, but overall, an enjoyable experience. And then lastly, we had a sponsored gameplay for Pandemonium. This is a light drafting game. I had fun with it, but it's not one that it's like very Sushi Go-esque in the general gameplay, and I think Sushi Go has cuter vibes. There were elements of it I definitely liked. I liked the different abilities, different drafting rules you had each round. That kind of kept things fresh and mixed things up. But I felt the various Panda Lords weren't different or unique enough to constantly be inspired by the types of sets or things you're going for, where I felt something like Sushi Go does that better. So elements I liked, elements I wasn't as impressed by, that was Pandemonium. And that's basically the games we covered this past week, which means it's time for today. Today we should have two things going up. We should have a sponsored gameplay for the Green Conquest going up. I do want to warn you, because we filmed this and then we found out after, well, and we had the usual disclaimers that it's a prototype, rules, components, subject to change, and all that, but very much this is one where they've updated the art, they've updated the miniatures, they've already done a ton of things. So if you are watching this one, make sure, like, I'll have a pin tag and all that, but make sure to check out the GameFound campaign to take a look at the current components, because they're already significantly better than what is shown in the sponsored gameplay. And then also from there, we should have a review for Black Forest going up on the channel as well. Oh, I need to do another video. I just remembered. Anyways, Black Forest. Black Forest review should be going up later on the later today on the channel. As far as next week we'll have a bunch of things. I'm going to have 8 games to check out if you like Minecraft. This is because of the Minecraft movie, which just came out, which I have to go see with my kids. But 8 games to like Minecraft. Check that out if you want. That will be going up tomorrow on Sunday. And then later this week, hopefully, if the schedule remains true, I should have my biggest disappointments of 2024. That should be going up. And it's not all 2024 games, but it's experiences I had in 2024 that were my biggest disappointments as far as different games go. I don't know why I've held off so long on doing this video. I actually had it filmed a while ago. I think it just kind of slipped through the cracks and never went up. Hopefully it will go up this week. As far as the games on the table, as usual, these are the games I hope to be diving into this week, which we have 2 in Shrink and 2 not in Shrink, so we're halfway there. But we have The Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring. I've just finished Mission 12 last night, and I hope to be finishing, well, maybe not finishing, but at least playing it more, because I'm really enjoying this. Honestly, I was not quite as sure. I haven't even reviewed on the channel yet, but I'll tell you that the first missions kind of were a little too simple. It kind of needed to get to the escalation point, but I'm at there now, and I'm enjoying it a lot more with that escalation. I would love to dive into Nassau from Stefan Feld. I've played this briefly at PAX Unplugged, and I would love to get in a full proper game of this, so we'll see if that happens this week. And then over here on this side of the table, we got Hollow Pact, which I hope to be playing this week. It'll be launching towards the end of April. We'll see how responsible and ahead of the game I am. But this is from the people who did Beast, which is a game I very much enjoy. And they also want to dive into the Marvel Dice Throne over here, primarily because I have a busy week ahead of me as it is, and I would love to be able to get some lighter. Part of why I have 2 lighter and 2 heavier games over here, because I would love nothing more than just to roll a little bit of dice and have some light casual fun, because I could use some of that with all the rulebooks I'll be reading this week and everything else I'm doing. Anyways, that is basically everything. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I appreciate you being here, and as always, I hope you have a good one.